And hello, everybody. How's it going tonight? Tom Young with the Tom Talks Baseball podcast. Of course, you can find us on Facebook like you're doing right now. Tom Talks Baseball podcast. Also on Twitter at Tom Talks BBP. Doing another interactive podcast right now. Having a lot of fun with these. If you like what you're watching, give us a comment. Let us know what you think about these. And also, because it's interactive, you can join the conversation. Leave a comment or a question below, and maybe we'll showcase it here on the show and get it answered for you. And also trying something new here. We're on YouTube right now, I believe. So I put a link up to that in our Twitter at Tom Talks BBP. So if you don't have Facebook, you can check us out on YouTube. It is definitely a very new channel, not a whole lot going on there right now, but you can catch the live show if you want to watch us there. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe, as we plan on doing more of these interactive podcasts down the road. Going to have a lot of fun tonight with our special guests, but first of all, joining me this evening, of course, you know him as host of the Sports Drive. You see it there in the upper left of your screen. Lance Lahner joining us. Lance, how's it going, man? Thanks for being here tonight.
Oh, I'm doing great. This should be a lot of fun tonight. I'm looking forward to it, Tom.
It is definitely going to be a lot of fun. And as you can see, the picture behind us right now is actually from Taiwan. It is part of the Chinese Professional Baseball League. And our guest this evening comes to us literally halfway across the world. His name is Daniel Shih. He is, funny enough, here in Texas, he is very familiar with the state as he is a student at the University of Texas, but also he manages the Twitter account for the Chinese Professional Baseball League. You can find them on Twitter at CPBL. Daniel Shih joins us tonight. Daniel, thank you very much. I should say good morning to you because I believe you just woke up. It's approaching 9 o'clock p.m. here. What time is it in Taipei right now?
It's 9:30 a.m. in the morning, so 13-hour difference versus the central time here.
And it's Friday right now.
Yes,
so,
it is Friday
okay.
Morning.
So we are literally talking to someone in the future. You can tell us how Thursday night went a little bit later on. But we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to talk about the CPBL. We're going to talk about how Taiwan has handled COVID-19, because that country, I'd say more than any other, has really handled this pandemic very well. But before we get there, Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why are you such a big baseball fan, and how did you get involved with the CPBL on Twitter?
Yeah, so my first years following baseball was back in 2007, 2008. I would say I'm familiar with a lot of Taiwanese fans my age, that, Chien-Ming Wang, who pitched for the Yankees, who won 19 games in 2 consecutive years, and I think was like second in the Cy Young voting. He was like a hero for a lot of the Taiwanese fans back in the day, and that's when I started watching baseball. It was all over the news, all over the newspaper, and so that's how I started. My first year of watching like almost every single Yankee game was 2008, which is unfortunate because that was like the first year that the Yankees did not make the playoffs since like the early 1990s. So, but I was able to keep staying with the Yankees, even though Chien-Ming Wang had left the Yankees due to injuries, and they just decided not to extend him after the 2009 season. So that's how I got into baseball. In terms of the CPBL, being a Taiwanese sports fan, or Taiwanese baseball fan, to be more specific, CPBL, is one of the first things you learn after you learn about MLB. And so, again, back in like 2007, I went to a baseball camp for the Lanue Bears, which is the former team name of the Lamigo Monkeys, which is the former team name of now the Rakuten Monkeys. And so that's how I, first got into the CPBL. In 2008, our family moved to Beijing, and there's absolutely no baseball in China, in mainland China. If you go to one of the largest, you can go to the largest sports goods supermarket, like Dick's Sporting Goods. There will be merchandise on everything, literally everything from cricket to some like horse riding. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay, yeah.
it can be anything, but no baseball tools or bats or gloves whatsoever. But so I stopped. It was easier to follow the MLB back then. But obviously, I was loosely following the CPBL until this year, when I came back to Taiwan due to the pandemic. The CPBL became the first league to start the season in the world, and the CPBL was getting a lot of international attention, and so I was fortunate enough to be caught in the whole storm when the league and the teams are hiring English-speaking people to run social media accounts, to do all kind of stuff. So I kind of got lucky there, and so that's how I started.
And you can see right now, he's talking about the CPBL. This is video from this isn't last year. This isn't a couple years ago. This is like about, 50 hours ago that this happened. The CTBC brothers won the first half title. And it sounds like your league is kind of constructed the same way that we have a AA baseball team here in town, the Amarillo Sod Poodles. They play in something called the Texas League, and they have kind of a first half champion as well. After 70 games, whoever wins that goes to the playoffs. And the brothers did that here. And watching this video from a couple of days ago with what's happening here in the United States, it's crazy to think that you're even doing this. Because you got, look, everyone's hugging each other, celebrating the victory. You got fans in the stands. I love the streamers, by the way. We need to adopt the streamers here for whenever we have teams clinching playoff spots. That's awesome. But obviously, go ahead, Lance.
I'm just curious, Daniel, do they hand out a streamer to every fan, or do they purchase that, or how'd you guys do that? How do they do that?
So I've never actually been a part of that ceremony, throwing the ribbon. But it's not just a Taiwanese baseball thing. It's, in every sport in Taiwan, when even like in badminton, like or some other smaller sports, you will see teams throwing out ribbons when they win a championship. So I see, that's the question I wonder a lot too. Do the teams hand them out? I'm pretty sure the players get the ribbons from the team.
Yeah.
But I would say I think the team probably did their part in terms of giving out the ribbons. I mean, there will be fan clubs that's more or less associated, or very passionate fan clubs that would go out there and buy them in bulk and then hand them out in the stadiums. So I can't tell you like the team bought it definitely and they gave it to the fans, but it is a universal thing in Taiwan in terms of celebrating a championship by throwing
streamers.
Into the field.
Very cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah, seriously, we need to adopt that here.
Even, man. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we're chatting with Daniel Shih. He is a University of Texas student, so he's very familiar with the state of Texas. Very hot here right now in Amarillo. We just got done with like 7 straight days of 100-degree heat. So, of course, if you're in Austin going to school, you're familiar with that too. But what's Taiwan like right now? What's the weather as we speak in Taipei?
So first of all, I've never understood the Fahrenheit system.
Okay.
So let's start with that. I mean, I understand like I understand it's hot, like over 100 degrees. Like I get a feeling of how hot like 100 degrees or 90 degrees or 40 degrees mean. But in Taipei, it's a lot more humid than Texas. it's starting to get around 35 degrees Celsius, which I think with my totally non-professional math, I would say it's somewhere around 80 to 100 degrees, I would say, Fahrenheit, which is a pretty large gap. But it's humid, so it's pretty hard to. I mean, I would say I would rather be in Texas where it's dry rather than in humidity and it's hot. However, for the players, the so-called the minor league, the CPBL minor league, which is technically it's called the Future Series, but it's easier to understand if we call it the CPBL minors. They actually play starting like 1 p.m. in the southern part of the island, which is normally hotter than Taipei. So and actually none of the teams in the CPBL play in technically Taipei City. So Taipei is a little bit more different than most of the other cities in Taiwan because it's surrounded by mountains, mountain terrains. So it's harder for wind to come in. So it's just like a huge pot of hot air, humid air. But a lot of the other cities are a little bit less hot pot-ish. So it is still hot out there, but as soon as it gets into the night, when winds come in, it will be a lot better there. In Taipei, it's just humid. It's getting harder and harder to put masks on for a long time in the public. However, we still put our masks on because we still understand it's important to control. That's important part to control the pandemic.
That's definitely something that we want to talk about. First of all, DSJ Homestead, thanks for watching.
Yes. Hey, Tom,
there you go. Yeah. There's our comparison. So it's probably about the same, but you got the humidity there. So, dry heat is a little nicer than humidity. But thanks for watching tonight, DSJ.
Yes. And also, hey, guys, so at 35 Celsius, it's 95, okay, in the when you do the math. Now, that's thanks to Google, so we'll Google.
Google coming through in the clutch there. And Daniel, you talked about masks, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on tonight, because here in the United States, a week from tonight, we are going to finally get our season underway. Major League Baseball. Instead of playing a full 162, we're playing a little bit more than a third of that at 60 games. And even though teams are practicing in their home stadiums, they're doing a spring training part 2. We have players opting out. We have other players thinking about opting out. Concerns about how the testing is going here in the United States. COVID-19 cases are on the rise throughout the country. We still have a lot of our major sports. In fact, all 4 major sports aren't playing right now. Baseball is going to be the first one back. But in Taiwan, you guys are going. And as you saw with the video there, and as you saw with the picture before we went live here, you got fans in the stands because the country of Taiwan, they did something right, and that's what I want to find out from you. So you were over here going to school at UT. How long were you over here when COVID-19 was a thing? And then when you went back, did you notice any big differences how both countries were handling the pandemic?
Yeah. So China's first case, I mean, that's controversial, but basically Taiwan was alarmed by China's first case in January, which is before I left Taiwan and went back to the US for the spring semester. So when I left Taiwan back in January, it was, I thought I was leaving, I was going to a safer place. Which ended up not being the case. I had to leave for the safer place for twice in the span of 3 months. I came back to Taiwan in March during the spring break. UT extended the spring break by 1 week because of the pandemic. So the school have a chance to plan for online courses. I'll tell you a story though. When I came back, there was a mandatory 14-day quarantine that you had to stay at home. If you're living with your family, well, you cannot be living by yourself.
Okay.
if you're in home quarantine. So therefore, you must be living with a family.
Hmm.
You're not allowed to leave your room, even at your home. There will be every day there will be somebody from the county office calling you by via cell phone to make sure you're healthy. They will be asking you if you have any symptoms, or if you need any food. They if you request it, they will send you masks and uh, um, you know uh, instant noodles or ramen or food that you may need to get through those 14 days. And you're not allowed to share a same bathroom with other people in your family. So basically, they make sure you have enough bathrooms in your house before they let you in the country. And if you don't have enough bathrooms in your house, then they will require you to go to a hotel, which would be like a quarantine hotel, which they had a contract with the government. So 14 days of home quarantine. They have your phone number because if you don't give them your phone number, you're not allowed to get in.
Wow.
They will call you up, right? You're not allowed to leave your house with your phone because they track your phone. When they call you every day they call you at a different time. If they can't contact you, they go to the police, and the police will try to find you. And and then they will fine you. I forgot how much it was, but it was something around a couple $100 US dollars if they
Wow.
can't find you. If they find out your phone left the apartment or your house, they'll track you down and they'll fine you. And so that's that's a pretty good indication of how things are happening in Taiwan. We stopped the borders from Chinese nationals or people from China, I think, back in mid or late January. We stopped people coming in from Europe and America a little bit later, actually a bit later than the curve would indicate. There were a wave of imported cases back when I was coming in because that's when Europe started the pandemic. The US was about to start, and people like me were trying to flee back to Taiwan. But this may sound crazy to you. The maximum amount of cases in one day, so maximum of daily increase in cases, was 24.
Whoa.
And then that's for the whole country. One
yes.
day.
No, yeah, that's not Taipei or some, just once. That's the whole country. We were freaking out about 24 cases. We weren't sitting back and going like, it's just 24. So yeah, I think in my opinion, we realized that Superman ain't coming down to save us. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was the people were pretty united with the government. The government was rationing face masks since January. That was controversial because there were people saying, why aren't you donating masks to the mainland? Because they were having a worse pandemic than Taiwan. When they started rationing, each individual, each Taiwanese national would get like 5 masks in 2 weeks. But it's guaranteed. So, I don't even remember how much it costs because it basically costs nothing. Like, you still have to pay a fee, but it's not like $100 for 5 masks. So right now it's at 9 masks for every 2 days. So you can go to a pharmacy, like a government sponsored pharmacy, which is pretty popular, pretty common. You can go there, you give them your national insurance card, the IC card, and then they'll give you 9 masks and you'll be good for 2 days. So that's, so we get masks we can guaranteed masks every week, every 2 weeks. And back in June, they also opened up for the businesses that sell face masks to sell them by themselves. But before June, all of them face masks that were produced in domestically in Taiwan was they had to give it to the government so they can rationalize it. Well, they could give it out as rations to all the Taiwanese nationals. So all 23 million people in Taiwan gets 9 face masks every 14 days.
That's amazing.
And I need to add this as well. Back in January, when this whole thing was about to start, and obviously we understood how face masks were important, and that's why they were rationing it. One day, the domestic produced face masks was making at a rate of 6 million face masks per day. Now it is up to 20 million from January. So the government was buying machines or parts of machines, and then coming in, and then they were hiring or deputizing the businesses to put them together and making them. So the production went from 6 million to, I think right now it's at 20 million, more or less. And so that's how they were able to ration it among the nationals. And that's how they kept the hospitals from having short of face masks. They basically always had enough face masks for a week. I think the worst part was they only had it for a week, and then they were able to extend that gradually as the production went up.
So Daniel, when you go to a game, let's say one of the baseball games, does everybody enter with a mask on?
So when I started with a CPBO in early May, I think a week into it, they opened it up for 1,000 people per game. Okay.
So yeah. At first, it didn't start with fans.
Yeah, at first it did not have fans back in April. They gradually opened up. The league did. So at first it was 1,000 fans, and you had to wear face masks.
Okay.
Throughout the game. I think about 3 or 4 weeks after the Taiwanese CDC opened up the guidelines, the league had been talking with the CDC. So and then they opened up to 2,000 fans, and you can eat in the stadiums, but you can only buy foods within the stadium. So they make sure you're not buying stuff from outside. You're not having more contact with other people, because there was still a little bit of a community spread threat back then.
Yeah.
And then after about a couple of more weeks, they opened up to basically 50% capacity of the stadium. So there were no hard number capacity anymore. And you're allowed to bring food from outside the stadiums. In the stadiums, when you're at your seat, you don't need to wear a face mask. But if you leave your seat, like you go to the vendors or you go to the restroom, you have to wear a mask. So when you're in the concourse and stuff like that, technically you have to wear a mask. But when you're at your seat, you can eat, you can do whatever you need, and you can take a mask off. It is getting harder to, again, like I said, it's getting harder to have masks on because it's getting hotter, it's getting more humid. That's why part of the reason why they opened up.
Is there a lot of resistance among citizens with the, like if it's a mandate, wearing masks out in public? Are people fighting it, or is everybody pretty compliant with it?
I would say if the U.S. is about, on scale to 100, 0 to 100, the U.S. is 50%, 50% of people don't want to wear masks, 50% of people do wear masks. I would say in Taiwan is about 5% of the people that don't wear masks.
Wow.
Back in the day when it was a huge, when it was starting, when it was a lot more dangerous than it is now. Right now it's about 60, 40, 70, 30 in terms of masks and no masks. But that's in public. Like when people are in a more crowded indoor space, you need to wear masks. It's mandated that you need to wear masks in public transports, so buses, metros, subways, whatever. or whatever. But then obviously there's AC in those, so it's a lot easier. There isn't as near as much of a pushback on masks, even when it started. And I'll tell you why. SARS in 2003 hit Taiwan pretty hard, and a lot of the Asian countries pretty hard. It never got to the States, so there's actually a study, I think, that countries that was hit by SARS have a much better response of COVID-19, because SARS was back in 2003, so it was like 17 years ago. People still remember stuff back from that pandemic, and people realize that masks are important. The government knows that, the people knows that. So actually people were going out and buying masks rather than not buying them. So that's why there was a shortage of masks, and that's why the government had to ration it, or else the price was gonna soar through the roof, and crazy stuff was gonna happen. So people were wearing masks from early in the pandemic.
The CPBL, of course, with this going on, they're probably trying to think ahead a little bit too. Hey, in a COVID-19 world, how are we going to keep players safe? How are we going to keep organizations safe? Was there a threat of the season being delayed or not happening at any point? Or was Taiwan's response so great that there was really no threat of any sort of delay in the season?
Yeah, there was a delay in the start of the season. I can't remember. I think it was delayed for about a month. Again, I came back to Taiwan in March 18th. And back then, that was the biggest spike of the pandemic. Even though we only had 24 daily cases for about a 5-day period, it was from 18 to 24 daily cases. And even though it sounds low now, it is still, for us, it was the largest number we had seen. So we were pretty nervous for that. I think normally the season starts in late March. They pushed it back, so it started at, I don't remember the exact dates again, but the season started in April. It started they started about 3 or 4 weeks later than usual, and that's why there won't be an All-Star game this year, because they wanted to get all 120 games in, and also normally the season ends after the Taiwan series ends in October. This year will more likely end in November. So they basically pushed back a whole month for the season, and also they canceled the All-Star break. The mid-season break is a little bit shorter. There's no All-Star game this year, so yeah, there was a delay, but obviously we were able to have all 120 games in.
What had to take place in order? Well, first of all, how many games did you go without fans, if any? And then what had to take place in order for fans to be allowed back into ballparks?
Yeah, so I would say it was about a month of no fans in the CPBL. So the league had been working with the CDC, our CDC here, in terms of what guidelines needs to happen. What are the restrictions for fans in the stadium? There was a lot of negotiations between the league and the government, as you can imagine, even just to start the season, because they needed to make sure the players are safe, the staff personnel are safe, and obviously, the teams and the league was dying for fans to come in. You've watched a couple of CPBL games. The fans are a very important part of the atmosphere at the games, and so having no fans at first, it was new, but a couple of weeks into it, it was just too quiet for the CPBL. So they had to do a lot of negotiations. The first open up. So again, they've opened up to 1,000 fans per game. There had to be each fan has to be one row from each other. So like fans, no fans, fans, no fans in rows, and they have to be at least 2 or 3 seats apart at the same row, or something along those lines. They have to be, they're probably like 10 or 15 feet from each other. So no high fives, obviously. They were dancing, but no high fives, no hugging in public. People are too far from each other. When they opened up to 2,000 fans, it's a little bit the same, but the space from each other was a bit smaller. You can take your masks off when you're eating and having water, but all the other times you have to have masks on. Fans were only allowed to be in the infield at that moment. Obviously, there were only 1,000 or 2,000 fans, but it's also that means less people working at the concourse, right? And then when they opened up to 50% capacity, the reason why I say it's 50%, technically there were no limits on the capacity except for one rule, which is you need to be sitting in crisscross patterns with each other. So seat, no seat, seat, no seat, seat, no seat, technically. Obviously, if you're a couple or you're a family, you're allowed to sit together. So like there are like exceptions to those rules. But so if crisscross patterns, when you think about it, it's around 50% capacity. 2 games before the game you just showed with the ribbon, there were 2 games that broke 10,000 people in attendance. And one game was in the Brothers' home field in Taichung, and one in the Monkeys' home field in Taoyuan. So, and that's around, because 20,000 capacity is about as big as it gets here. So that's probably the max capacity that they could get. If you look at the video now, they're not like, it could be fuller, like it could be more condensed.
The way it looks like it is pretty full, like just with the way the camera angle works there.
Yeah. Which is like, it's probably very hard to imagine from the States now, but this is about 50% capacity, and this is as full as it can get right now. I'm not sure if they will open up even more to full capacity, but right now people need to be sitting in crisscross patterns.
What's the seating capacity for that place, for instance?
That's about 20,000. So I forget the actual figure, but I think it was around 10,700 people in the stadiums. See, this is just the infield. The outfield was almost full as well, but full of Brothers fans in yellow. This is these are Monkeys fans in the infield. But yeah, so you're seeing about 60% of the entire fans in that stadium. In this, I was there at the game. I took these videos. So 20,000 is about as big as it gets. Taichung is also 20,000. So 50% of that will be about 10. I mean, I was surprised it went past 10,000. But it was pretty amazing. Think about 10,000 fans in a stadium. To me that's probably a landmark. Like we went from 0 to 1,000 to open up crisscross patterns, and now 10,000.
Yeah, I think we're just hoping to even play a game. That's kind of that kind of seems to be the thought here in the States right now. Is we got the season slated to start a week from today, but a lot of people don't know if we're going to get through all 60 games. And then if baseball doesn't, well, then what about the next season? Football. Right. That's the big one here, as you know, being down at UT. If there's no football in the United States, there you go. But
we got a lot of Texas Tech fans up here, Daniel.
Okay, we own you guys.
Yeah.
Not in hoops. Not in hoops.
Not hoops. No.
Well, it sounds like. Well, go ahead, Lance. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask Daniel. Are the players themselves? Are they popular? Are they national treasures? Are they very famous athletes throughout the country?
Sports industry in general isn't as big. in Taiwan versus the States, even proportionally.
Okay.
So, you know, I mean, you'll have people that don't know anything about baseball. Even if you know baseball, there will be a portion of baseball fans that only watch the MLB. Now, this year might be different because the CPBL is the only thing that's going on.
Yeah.
But you know, the more people are players that have played for the national team would have much bigger influence or popularity than those who don't. So Lin Zhisheng, who is playing DH, first base for the brothers, he was a big part of the national team back then. So he's very, very popular here. So playing on the national team, it will be a big step to getting your popularity up versus the States, where the national team at the pro level isn't really that big there. So same with basketball. You talk about the dream team, but last couple of competitions, the dream team isn't that dreamy anymore.
Yeah.
Obviously, those are NBA stars,
true. Yeah.
but it isn't like LeBron.
It's not an all-star team. Yeah.
Right. So and the reason for that is you guys don't need a national team to show that you're good at baseball. You have the MLB, for Taiwanese, for Koreans, for Japan, for smaller baseball countries that are passionate in baseball. Playing well in the international stage is important. So people tune into the national team games. If they play well, it's all over the national news media. So I mean, among the CPBL world, obviously the stars are big. Obviously, they have all the merchandise that you need. Domestically, we haven't been doing too much overseas shipping yet, but yeah, in general, the fans are popular within. There will be a couple, probably about a list of 10 to 15 players that people outside of the baseball world might know. I mean, still, it depends on how far they are from baseball. But even proportionally, sports isn't as big in Taiwan as the States or soccer in Europe.
Real quick, what do you consider your national sport in Taiwan?
Oh, baseball. Baseball is national sport. I mean, we were talking about this on my podcast. Baseball is probably the most successful professional sport in Taiwan. I say that because it is probably the only successful sports league as of right now. Basketball is starting their new sports league, their new league, professional league. But before this year, they play in a semi-professional league. Badminton is professional, but it is not as big at all. So baseball is probably the only sport in Taiwan domestic pro league that can get thousands of fans into regularly. However, it is still if it's in a full development calendar, it is still in its infancy. We're approaching our 31st year. This is our 31st year. So comparing to the MLB, even the KBO or the NPB, which is the Japanese league, it's still a little behind. But within Taiwan, is probably the most developed sports industry.
Have you noticed a little bit of an uptick in popularity this year because of the fact that you were one of the first ones to get going? I know here in the States, we got the KBO on ESPN right now, as a DSJ Homestead pointed out. We got those games on really early in the morning live. Have you noticed fans from outside of Taiwan kind of jumping on board to the CPBL a little bit just because they're starving for some baseball?
I'll tell you a little secret. The fact that overseas fans are watching the CPBL is probably the only reason I have a job right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Working for the league. There were very little attention being put on the CPBL, probably other than, baseball fanatics, like or scouts or people working at Baseball Reference or So so at the start of the season, when the news about the CPBL was starting to uh, uh, be promoted abroad, I think, I can speak for myself only. I was surprised as of how much attention we were getting. Obviously, now KBO being on ESPN, that took a hit on our popularity among overseas fans. But still, it is still a big jump from in terms of overseas attention. Without the CPBL being, without the CPBL playing and being still among conversations in over baseball fans overseas, I won't be on this podcast, right? Like you wouldn't have known about the CPBL, and we wouldn't have connected. So yes, it has been a big jump of popularity overseas for the league.
You mentioned Chien-Ming Wang earlier, one of the reasons you got into baseball. Is there a player right now in the CPBL that you think at some point could maybe make a jump over here in the MLB, someone that we should be paying attention to?
That's more people come back from the States than going abroad.
Okay.
For the CPBL. But if I have to pick one, Huang En-si starting pitcher for the Brothers, he had been lights out this year in the first half of the season. Obviously, he's a young pitcher, so obviously we have to wait to see how consistent he is. But normally, in most circumstances, the best high school players or college players in Taiwan, most of the time they go to Japan, the States first, and depending on how they do or how far they go, if they're stuck at a level or they're not going up anymore. Sometimes most of the time they come back to the CPBL and they enter the draft. If you're Indians fan, CC Lee Zhenchang, who's now the closer for the Brothers, he pitched for the Indians back in the day. Lin Zhexuan, who played the outfield for the Red Sox for a couple of games, he also came back from the States. So there were a couple of players that played in the States or Japan, and they come back to the CPBL. The other way around is a little bit more rare. Also has to do with the rules that they have. You have to play in the CPBL for 3 years in order to have a chance to negotiate with overseas teams from overseas about a trade.
What kind of salaries do they make?
Not a lot comparing to the MLB. The contracts are not as transparent in the CPBL versus the MLB. But the disparity between a rookie contract versus a contract like of a player that's made the major leagues before, it's pretty big. The gap is pretty big. I don't pay attention to the contracts per se because they change a lot. The CPBL salary changes a lot, but a star would make a couple about $10,000 or $20,000 a month. So but those are like the big stars we're talking about, like the top echelon of the players. Obviously, if you're a rookie, you're playing in the future series squads, the salaries are a lot different.
Well, we're chatting with Daniel Shih, who is the Twitter manager for the Chinese Professional Baseball League. You can check that out on Twitter at CPBL, also a University of Texas student. Daniel, thank you very much for joining us tonight, or I should say this morning, as you are currently in Taipei. So you're waking up this morning. You know, here we maybe go out and get some pancakes, some bacon, some eggs, some sausage. What's the go-to breakfast in Taiwan? What are you having this morning?
Egg rolls, cheese egg rolls.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's a little bit like
does, as a matter of fact.
If Taiwanese people are watching this, they'll hate me for this, but it's a little bit like a tortilla.
Yeah,
it's not the same as a tortilla, but a little bit like a tortilla, a better version of tortilla. Because we're in Taiwan, and then eggs, and then like a couple of sliced cheese, and then like you pan fry it, and then you roll it up, and then you cut it, and then you add that with some soy milk. It's pretty dope.
Hey, Daniel, there's a lot of baseball traditions here in America. You know, like the 7th inning stretch, the national anthem before a game, things like that. Can you take us through? Are there some traditions in Taiwan that happen if I was attending a game?
So there will be no singing during the 7th inning. The intermission, there'll be more stuff happening during intermission.
Okay.
They you know how obviously if you watch MLB or American baseball in America, they do groundswork after the 3rd and the 6th inning. In the CPBL, they do it once, the big one, after the 5th inning. So like that intermission. So that takes a while. So that's when the cheerleaders will be having their routines. So cheerleaders are a thing in Taiwanese baseball. Speakers will be coming through. Music will be coming through the speakers even during the pitch. I've covered quite a bit of NCAA basketball, so football, and also watch a lot of football. If you watch football, you know that like when the ref blows the whistle, that's when the music has to stop, and it all has to be from the fans. Even the band has to stop.
Right.
But in the CPBL, the music can be played even during the pitch, during the at bat, whatever you need. It is, to be honest, I'll tell you this. I went back to watch Game 5 of the NLDS between the Nationals and the Dodgers a couple of weeks ago, and so again, one of the best games, best atmosphere for the MLB the whole year. And I went back to watch some of the highlights, and it seemed quiet. Like it was. I mean, I was like, there needs to be some music or some. And it's not like, obviously they're not like a jazz music, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no
classical playing.
Imagine they're playing Beethoven during that. But it's EDMs or pop music, and the cheerleaders are dancing during the music. Most of the time, the music are played when the home team is at bat, because obviously they're not playing music to cheer the batter when they're pitching. So it's a little bit more quiet when they're out there playing defense. But be aware of the music, be aware of the cheerleading, the dancing, a lot of shouting. We're not talking about like there's one dude sitting behind the dugout talking trash to Clayton Kershaw. You know, it's a lot of shouting, a lot of singing in unison, and it's more of a party scene, I would say, rather than get off my lawn, I just want to watch baseball kind of
Well, with that in mind, how did the players react to no fans? Like, if they're already used to a bunch of this other stuff happening, did it really affect them? Because there's some concerns about how that might affect the players here in the States without fans, that extra ambiance, that noise. If you already had music playing anyway, did they really notice?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you would notice. Even watching the broadcast, I mean, it's a huge difference. Just watching those empty seats would be a difference. And the funny thing is, even during no fans, there were cheerleaders in the stands, and I'm not sure who they're cheering towards. They were dancing into the field, but obviously players are technically focused on the game. At first, when the season started, the players, or my vibe was the players were, they were happy just to play a season or to play baseball. But a couple of weeks into it, it's starting to get dry. It's the fatigue of having no fans started to come out, and I mean, again, like you said, having fans in the stadiums and having like music and stuff like that is pretty is pretty an important part.
Well, just look at this right here. You got you got a player with the cheerleaders just dancing in between innings. It looks like he's having a good old time.
He's got the dirt on the jersey, man. I love it.
He just made a diving catch, and now he's doing like some weird Macarena or something. It's and the fans are loving it.
It's the MVP ceremony after each game. So if the home team wins, so they do a game MVP for each game, and if the home team wins, obviously the MVP goes to a player on that team, on the team that wins. And so if it's a home team, they do a ceremony, and then they do the dance or.
I like the signing of the camera there.
Yeah. That's a Monkeys thing, though, I think, and Lions thing. They don't do that for everyone.
Well, I will say just one thing I've seen here, just going through some of the videos, chatting with Daniel Shih. You can find out a lot of the stuff that he does on Twitter at CPBL. He posts a lot of the great videos and pictures for what's happening around the league. One thing, we have a minor league baseball team here in Amarillo, the Amarillo Sod Poodles. And one great thing about minor league baseball we've learned is that even if you're not necessarily a baseball fan, there is still a lot of other things happening throughout the course of the game that can get you involved and get you to enjoy what's happening. Looks like the CPBL is kind of the same way. Like if I was not a baseball fan, it still looks like a big old party, with just a baseball game that happens in between.
And the monkeys right now, the Rakuten monkeys. Before this year, they were called the Lamigo monkeys. They came up with a lot of these ideas. They changed how the CPBL fan atmosphere was. They were one of the first teams that picked a stadium and just dedicated that as their home stadium. At first, it was games happening all over Taiwan. They want to make sure fans around the country have a chance to watch the games. But the Monkeys, they picked Taoyuan as their stadium, and they stayed there for ever since, I think, 2013 or 2011. I forgot the year again. I'm very bad with specifics. But, I mean, they're the ones that decided that, at first, before they did this, it was the first base dugout was fans of one team. The third base dugout was fans of another team. And they would chant against each other, so to make sure that they're louder, but they were the first team that decided that the entire infield is ours, and so you away fans could go to the outfield and be far away from the action. And they were also they also brought in pop stars after the game, so they will have concerts after the game. So if you're a fan of the pop star, you would buy a ticket to the game, maybe catch the baseball game, or maybe just wait for the concert. But basically watch the baseball game, and then maybe they like the atmosphere. If they get to like the atmosphere, they would come in for a couple more games. But they were really active in finding pop stars and trying to have them to have concerts or do magic shows after games, or have players come out and sing after games. They were one of the first teams to do a collaboration with the Ministry of Defense here in Taiwan. Flyovers are not as usual in Taiwan versus the States, so they were one of the first teams that actually coordinated with the Ministry of Defense and did a huge showcase for the military, and also had fighter jets fly above the stadiums. And it is not the same culture in terms of in the military versus Taiwan versus the States. So, flyovers are not usual. My first time seeing a flyover myself was Texas versus USC back in Austin in 2018. And that was my first time. I'm pretty sure people around me they were cheering, but I'm pretty sure that wasn't their first. But for me, that was a pretty awesome sight to witness for the first time. And looking back, I wasn't there. I had to do a lot of catching up in terms of learning the history of the league this year. But looking back at the footage of fighter jets flying over a baseball stadium in Taiwan, that was pretty special.
So if I want to learn more about the Chinese Professional Baseball League here in the United States, where's the best place I can go?
The CPBL Twitter page.
Okay, and that's at CPBL.
Yes,
on Twitter.
and all the accounts that are doing CPBL, so including the Fubon Guardians, they're pretty active on Twitter. 11 Sports Taiwan, they're doing half the games in English for overseas fans. And we are trying to bring the CPBL to the world and help you learn more about the league.
Well, I know it's something, I'm going to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about it, but just watching some of the videos, it looks like it's a good old time going out to the ballpark. And like I said before, even if you don't like baseball, there's going to be something going on there that you're going to latch onto and enjoy and make you want to come back. Real quick.
97,000 followers on Twitter. That ain't shabby.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good. That's like 125th.
You got one more right now.
Population.
Okay?
Yeah. But the league was doing a great job of promoting the CPBL to Japan. And Japanese Twitter's also popular in Japan. So they've been doing a lot of work promoting the league and using the Twitter as a platform. And this year, they were trying to do a little bit more to the English-speaking world as well. So we were able to grow a little bit from that.
Daniel, I had a quick question, if you don't mind, Tom.
Go for it.
The names, you mentioned a few names, but they change quite often. Why is that?
Because the teams normally you will see that in a lot of Asian baseball teams. The teams are named after the mother corps, the corporation that's funding the team. So even in Japan, there's a Rakuten the corporation. They have a team in the MPB. In the KBO, there's a Samsung team. There's there's a Lotte team as well. So and the corporation change a lot more frequently in the state in Taiwan. There will be a corporation that will be doing it for a couple of years, and then they will transfer the team to somebody else. That's just a general vibe of the CPBL. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit more stabilized in the upcoming years. There is one more team coming in though for the fifth team of the league next year. So,
but do they keep the nicknames? They keep the monkeys, or do they?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. So the Fubon Guardians, their mother corps is called Fubon, the Fubon Corps. Before 2017, they were called the EDA Rhinos, which is the core behind one of the largest recreational theme parks in Taiwan. Okay. They were called the EDA Rhinos. Before that, they were called the Sinon Bulls. The Sinon is a pharmaceutical company in Taiwan. And before that, there was the Jingle Bears. And for the Rakuten monkeys, before Rakuten, they were called the Lamigo monkeys. Their mother corporation was Lanu, which is a shoe selling company in Taiwan. But they changed the name. They changed the name in 2011. So before 2011, they were called the Lanu Bears. So obviously the corporation name was in the team. After 2011, they changed it to Lamigo monkeys. But the corporation, the the corporation that was funding the team was the same. In 2019, they decided to sell the team, not because they just decided to sell the team. They still love baseball, and so they wanted to make sure whoever was buying the team, they love the team so much. They wanted to make sure not only that the team was staying in Taoyuan, because they were the first team that dedicated itself to a city.
Right.
So they had a really good relationship with the municipal government in Taoyuan. So they wanted to make sure not only the team was in Taoyuan, but they wanted to keep the monkeys' name. And so they went from the Lamigo to the Raccoon Monkeys. And so it really depends on the negotiations. The CTBC brothers, before CTBC is a bank in Taiwan. I think they bought the team in 2014. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. But before that, they were called the Brothers Elephants, and the mother core for that one was a hotel, the Brothers Hotel in downtown Taipei. Now they were one of the founding members of the league, and the CEO of the Brothers Hotel was one of the pioneers. He was dead set on putting together a league, and so that team is still one of the most popular teams in Taiwan. So when they were selling the team, obviously when they were negotiating with the CTBC bank core, they were part of the contract, or part of the guarantee was that they had to keep the Brothers Elephant name. Okay. So it's still, it just depends on the agreement.
Yeah. Imagine if every year the Yankees had a different name. How do you think people will react to that here in the States? Yeah. No longer the Yankees. They're the New York Bank of Americas or something.
Or how about the Longhorns? How about the Longhorns changing that name?
No. Well, Daniel, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun getting to know you, chatting with you, literally halfway across the world in the capital of Taiwan, Taipei. One final thing, I do want to give you some love here. You also have a podcast, The Rants with Danny Shih. Tell us about that podcast, a little bit, what you do and how people can find it.
Yeah, so it's basically just a way for me to rant about sports stuff. When the CCPBL started this season and moved to a lot of CPPL content, and just me with the microphone yelling stuff and having people on.
It's the rants part, right?
Yes. Before April, it was a lot of Texas Longhorns, the MLB. I'm a big Yankee fan, so Yankee stuff. One of my first episode, which I don't think is on Spotify, I saw the Kyler Murray situation. I just kind of had stuff to talk about. I just had thoughts in my head I wanted to talk about. So that's how I started. And I have guests on every single week. Most of the time, it goes on a long time, just like this podcast as well. I had some cool.
Yeah, the logo's awesome. I like the logo too.
Yeah. I had some cool people coming on the show, including former CPPL players and CPPL commentators. I'd love to have y'all on the show sometime in the future. You can find us on, as you can see, on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. If anybody out there is using Google Podcasts, I'm not sure more than 10 people are using that. iHeartRadio, I'm on that too. Just got on there, and nice. All kinds of podcast websites that you can find me on. So.
Well, Danny, thank you very much again for joining us tonight. It was a lot of fun to learn about the Chinese Professional Baseball League, really? and also great to learn about how a country correctly handled COVID-19 to the point where you guys were able to pretty much play a full season with fans in the stands, while we're just fingers crossed can get going underway here with our season here in a week. And I think a lot of the world can learn from what Taiwan did in terms of handling this pandemic, jumping out in front of it before it even became an issue. And I think according to worldometer.info, I think your active case count is 5, which is crazy low. It's crazy. Like Taiwan has really killed it when it comes to handling this. And because of that, you got the stage right now, you and a few select other leagues over there overseas. And there's a lot of fun learning about it tonight. Thank you very much for joining us on the Tom Talks Baseball podcast.
Thanks for having me. Love
and
to be
Lance,
on soon.
Yeah, you got it, man. We'll get you back on for sure.
Yeah, it was fun.
And Lance Launder, host of the Sports Drive, thank you very much for joining us as well. And if you like these interactive podcasts, let us know. Leave a comment on this video. We did the YouTube for the first time in pretty much ever. I had one. I started it a while ago, but I kind of got away from it. But with this being able to do the live podcast thing, I got the YouTube going again. If you're on Twitter and don't have a Facebook, that's another place you can watch us. We got some comments from there tonight, so be sure to subscribe to that YouTube page. Follow us on Twitter, Tom Talks BBP. Like us on Facebook, Tom Talks Baseball Podcast. Thanks again for watching. Until next time, I'm Tom Young. This has been the Tom Talks Baseball Podcast. Everybody have a good night or a good day, depending on where you're watching from. We'll talk to you again next time.